Good afternoon. At the onset, I would like to, on my personal behalf, and on behalf of the organizers, would like to welcome Honorable Minister, Mr. Santosh Kumar Gangavar, Minister of State for Finance, Government of India. Sir, a warm welcome from our side. A warm welcome to Mr. Chimanbhai Shapadia, Cabinet Minister, Agri, Farmers Welfare, Energy. Sir, thank you for joining us for this very important session. A warm welcome to Secretary, Mr. Shobna K. Patnaik, Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India. Sir, thank you for coming, and we look forward to your address at the end of the panel discussion, sir. His Excellency, Mr. Ivo Rokotovo from Madagascar, he has just regretted, so he will not be joining. And Mr. Kenny Dalio, Ministry of Planning, Guinea also, I think, he has yet not joined, but he will be expected. And we have Mr. H.R. Dave, who is the Managing Director of National Bank of Agriculture and Rural Development, NABARD. Mr. Atul Jain, from Joint Managing Director from Jain Irrigation Systems. And most important, our host from the host state, the Secretary of Agriculture, Mr. Sanjay Prasad. Sir, thank you for being with us today. We also have a very eminent people in the room, especially Mr. Randhawa, who is the MD of Gujarat Agro Corporation. Where is Mr. Randhawa? Here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media. I was here in the inaugural yesterday, and I was very happy to note that the main theme of the whole session is actually transforming agriculture for wealth creation of this whole 5-day summit, actually. So if you ask me, today's session is the theme session. This is the theme session for the whole event. Because actually, agriculture development only can lead to value creation. And as I have been given the task of giving my opening remarks for 5-10 minutes, what I would like to slightly dwell upon this, about the Indian experience and how we can use this Indian experience in Africa also to really make this happen. Let me put it this way, that the African Development Bank has talked of the 5 high fives. What are the 5 high fives? They are Feed Africa, Light Up Africa, Integrate Africa, Industrialize Africa, and Improve the Quality of Life of Africa. All the 5, in my mind, can be really reached if we develop agriculture, all the 5. Because, of course, with agriculture, we can feed Africa, even light up Africa, because agriculture can make biofuels. And biofuels, in my mind, are more cost-effective and more environment-friendly to really light up Africa. Of course, integrate Africa. We can industrialize Africa with agro-food processing complexes. And we can improve the quality of life of Africa through development of agriculture. In India, because of the development of agriculture, especially in the state of Gujarat, where agriculture development is much more than the rest of the country, we have seen the benefits like inclusive growth, rural, what I call infrastructure increase, support in rural infrastructure. It has given food security to the country because we made food, we have to import less. Most important, development of agriculture has a lot of bearing on the nutrition and on the health of children, especially. And I believe if agriculture grows, we have a direct bearing on the health and lifestyle of the people, in my mind, which is very important. And most importantly also, today it is India or Africa. The main thing is quality of life of the common man. And I believe agriculture development can really do this. It is not only that IT sectors or certain automobile sectors can do this. If maximum lives have to be impacted, with 50% of the people, both in India and Africa, dependent on agriculture even today, I think agriculture development is the only way forward, and there is no other way forward. Now, I honestly would like to spend another 5 minutes on how India and Africa can cooperate in this. And this is from my own experience working in this sphere of agri and food processing from quite some time. How we can partner in this agri growth. I believe Indian Green Revolution is well documented, very well documented. How can India partner in the African Green Revolution? I will request the panelists, that is the theme of today's session. And that's what we should all dwell on. Okay, how can India partner in the African Green Revolution? And let me tell you, if African Green Revolution happens, it is not to the benefit of India and Africa alone, it is to the benefit of the world. For the simple reason that 60% of the land in the world is in Africa. And they only feed 10% of the people. So our world's food problems and agriculture problems as we go forward and decades forward can be solved by agriculture development of Africa. And the development and this cooperation between India and Africa is actually going to be a game changer for the future. So how we can cooperate? See, in my mind, number one is raise the agri output. Farm mechanization, better quality of seed, better quality of fertilizers, better agriculture practices. Now all this, India has shown the way. We have got agri-scientists, we have got companies. Let us collaborate with Africa, government sector and private sector to make this happen. There are some very good practices in Gujarat, for example, the soil health card. Can we ensure that this practice is somehow followed in Africa is one way forward. Other number two is my favorite point is that agriculture cannot be only seen as agriculture. We have to integrate agriculture and food processing. When you sell a tomato, it sells for 10 cents. 10 cents, my African friends. You sell tomato juice, it sells for $1. So there is more money to be made in juice than selling tomatoes. And there is more money to be made in what I call agri-plants, what I call the model where, let us say, there is integrated agriculture and food processing in one place. If we can import Chinese tomato paste and sell and make tomato ketchup in India, of course, we can go in China, make tomatoes there, make our ketchup there, and sell not only to India, to the world. And that is the type of vision which Indian companies should be having. And I'm very happy that in these sessions, a lot of private sector people have participated. And I believe private sector has a big role to play, not only in agriculture, but the development of food processing in Africa for the benefit of both of us. There's one thing where I would believe there's a big role for the governments to play and the developmental bankers to play, and that is infrastructure. Nuclear plants cannot come with private money. Same way, I am looking at integrated cold chains, what I call waterways, roadways, rural infrastructure. This is where I think the government should spend the money. We require that desperately for this green revolution in India also and Africa also. I think, honestly, I believe enough is not being done on spending money and allocating money for rural infrastructure the way we need. We need still much bigger mega food parks. India has shown the way. In fact, Africa also can replicate the India model of the mega food parks. But I think still more monies need to be put into what I call food laboratories, a lot of things to do with agri-infrastructure. The fourth thing which we can, India and Africa can collaborate is education and skill development. Luckily, in the last few years, Indian universities have developed. Like 7-8 years, we have developed NIFTM. NIFTM has become a very nodal agency, or what I call Education Institute in Food. In every state, there are agriculture universities who are churning out some very good quality, what I call students, very good quality people. There are skill development institutes. How we can have collaboration between education institutes in India and Africa to really take this forward, in my mind, can be definitely a way forward. And more importantly, we should look at free trade. A free trade between India and Africa. There are a lot of products which India is surplus. Wheat, A, B, C, D, I can't go on and on. And there are some products where we need pulses. Can we have a free trade between India and Africa so that we feed each other what we require? So let me once again end by saying that we have a huge role in this session, and I would be very happy if each of the panelists can spend some time on this, on how we can really take this forward and how we can ensure that India and Africa partner towards this second green revolution, which is not only India's story, but which is going to be India and Africa joint story. With this, sirs, I would like to thank you. And I would like to now invite the panelists to give their little bit comments, and then we will have the addresses. Thank you. I would like to invite Mr. Atul Jain, who is the Joint Managing Director of Jain Irrigation Systems. Please come and give your address. If you want, you can use whatever you prefer.
Good afternoon, everybody. Dice. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I would just quickly, share my thoughts about what I feel, in terms of Africa and India, the cooperation on agriculture. I think first and foremost, I think there's tremendous amount of similarities between the two countries in terms of agriculture, more specifically. I mean, all of us know Africa needs, in spite of the fact that, previous speaker talked about they having so much land, blessed with so much water, blessed with such a wonderful weather that is so conducive for wonderful agriculture to take place. I mean, in spite of all that, and they have people to work in the farms, but sadly, Africa today is a net importer of food. In fact, if you really think of it, with all the infrastructure and all that they are blessed with naturally, they could be the football for the rest of the world. Saying that is where I believe India as a nation has tremendous amount of activities, tremendous amount of support is available from our side for Africa to change the way the agriculture is done in Africa. Now, we talked about Green Revolution, we're talking about Green Revolution number 2, but I think more importantly is, while India has so much to offer, I'm sure so much time has passed by, and while we talk about the second Green Revolution, I'm sure there is more of technology intervention that is required to make sure that we don't have to really reinvent the wheel while we change the way the agriculture is done in Africa. So what are those technological interventions that we need to think about? So all the technologies are available, but most importantly is that no matter how good the technology is, and it is functioning so well in the rest of the world, the key is that how do we do the adoption of those technology to suit the local need and culture? Minus that, no matter how the good technology may be, it may not be as effective in Africa as one would like it to be. So the most important aspect of whatever that we discuss and talk about is going to be that how do we really adopt those technology to suit the local need and culture? And I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenge that we have. While I say that, there is the similarity part of it in terms of the food, in terms of the way the agriculture is, and I think the biggest challenge that is always there in Africa as it is in India is that more than 50–60% of the population depends on agriculture. So in a way we can talk about that, okay, there's so much opportunities in agriculture, but at the same time, let's not forget that's a big number which is depending on agriculture. So while we talk about food security, let us not forget the solution cannot be purely focused on, basically achieving the food security. But while we do that, we also need to make sure that we are uplifting and transforming the lives of those millions of farmers that are there. Because in the quest of focusing on the food security part, which is necessary, we have to focus on the staple food, and there we need to be very, very dependent on that, and we need to achieve that security. But all of us know and understand that while we talk about it, food security items, staple food items are one of the lower income crops that are there. So while we may achieve the food security part, but we may not be able to achieve the upliftment of the majority of the the people who are in the bottom of the pyramid as we speak economically. And that's where the technological intervention needs to be in such a manner that we are able to achieve both upliftment of all these farmers while we achieve the food security part. And I think there the technological interventions like water management through drip irrigations with high quality planting material needs to go in. We have another issue which needs to be very integrated with this in a backward manner is obviously the energy availability, because no matter what we do, if we want to make agriculture remunerative, double the incomes of the farmers, we need to make sure that that is a irrigated agriculture and not a rain-fed agriculture. So while we want to achieve the irrigated agriculture, one of the major challenge there is going to be the availability of power as well, because any technological intervention on mechanization side or on irrigation side would need power. So I think solar power also comes in the very kind of, it seamlessly integrates with these solutions to make sure that we are able to optimize our input cost while we double, maybe triple the output, higher yields with a better quality produce. So, I mean, these solutions are very much available in India, because you can see the way India has transformed its agriculture over the last 5 decades. It's quite a model for Africa particularly to look at too. In addition to that, I also believe that it is necessary for us to focus on the education part, the hand-holding, the the transformation of transferring the knowledge to make sure that they don't depend on the rest of the world, and they are self-sufficient, and and that's something that any technology that is offered, I think hand-holding and capacity building should be made a very integral part of those technology transfers between the two countries. Saying that, I think it's a brilliant opportunity between both the continent. India in itself is almost a continent now, to share, and I think India could be a major partner for Africa because of the similarities of agriculture that we have in both countries, to bring this paradigm shift in the way the agriculture is looked at in Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to invite Mr. H.R. Dave, who is Deputy Managing Director of National Bank of Agriculture and Rural Development, NABARD. Mr. Dave, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all. Let me start by saying that NABARD, that is National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, is a unique organization. It is basically a development bank for rural India. It's owned by Government of India and Central Bank of India, that is the Reserve Bank of India, and it's mandated to facilitate developments in rural areas using the leverage of credit. So while we refinance, we also work on the area of product innovation. I would like to, picking up from what Mr. Jain just mentioned, the technology. And that's where I would like to build the argument where Indian lessons can be used effectively for African context. For anything, when we look at, we are basically trying to look at making agriculture sustainable. We are looking at a reasonable growth in agriculture. The reasons are known to us why agriculture is important for Africa and India both. Now, growth comes through investments. Simple economics. Somebody has to invest in agriculture to churn out that growth. Now, investments come through two sources. One is the public sources, the government spending, and the other is the private. I'll touch upon both these areas. India looked at importance of agriculture since the nationalization of banks in 1974, 69 to some extent. The idea was that if so many people depend on agriculture, credit should be available, because credit only can drive growth as far when it comes to the private investments. And year after year, you would find, although agricultural loans are called priority loans, priority sector loans for the Indian banking industry, but banks are doing much more than Honorable Minister is witnessing this points which I'm making. Banks are doing more than what government is looking at. It presupposes that lending to agriculture is not a losing proposition. It is a profitable proposition for the banks. Now, to make it profitable, what Government of India has done is to provide affordable credit to the farmers. There is a built-in element of subsidization from the Government of India. Now, India and Africa, if you look at, many of the similarities have been already mentioned by Mr. Kambada, but I would touch upon the preponderance of small farmers, small land holdings, especially when we look at sub-Saharan region. Sub-Saharan region and Indian context are almost similar. Now, is it possible to reach out to these small people? Let me tell you, no bank, and knowing a little bit of African banking industry, I can tell you that African banks are generally private banks, supplemented to great extent by microfinance institutions. Now, if you expect microfinance institutions lend at about 24 to 36% rate of interest, now if that is the solution for African agriculture, I don't think that is going to work. Agriculture will have to be profitable for agriculture credit to be profitable. And therefore, what are the ways in which you can make agriculture profitable? Now, so Government of India established NABARD, and there was a mandated focus to the banking industry that you should do more of agricultural lending banks did more than what was expected, proving that it is a viable proposition. But this was not a simple solution. India and Indian banks and NABARD, they did a lot of work on product innovation. Because unless you wholesale a bundle of the small landholders, you can't reach them out. So the concept of self-help groups came, which was women-centric investments. The second was the joint liability groups of farmers. I can assure you, even in Africa, given the land laws that we have, and land laws which were inherited by us, there will be preponderance of oral leasing. Now, I own the land, but I don't cultivate. Somebody else does that. Now, no bank is going to invest in that kind of a plot. So unless we do product innovation, which India did, and I'm very happy to share with you, that significant amount of agricultural credit is now going through joint liability group concept, and at affordable rates. Third, let me also bring in the concept of a credit card for the farmers. Now, how many farmers of Africa today have access to credit cards? Now, Government of India, in fact, Honorable Prime Minister himself spoke on 31st December, saying that every farmer of India should have a credit card. And I'm very happy to share with you all that within next 1 month or maximum 2 months' time, that day will come when we can proudly say that every Indian farmer has a credit card. Something which gives flexibility to the farmer to use the money the way he wants to use it. This is another lesson from India which possibly can be looked at in African context. Third, now let me tell you, these RuPay cards are all digitized. So, farmer has the option of going to any of those cash vending machines or retailers. In addition to this, what Government of India announced, and NABARD supported that, is access to cash transaction points or merchant points. So in India, we have sanctioned, and they'll be installed very soon, 2 POS devices, point of sale devices, in 100,000 villages. Now, India has 600,000 villages, so we are covering 100,000 villages in another 2-3 months' time. So farmer will have not only the card, but also access to the places where he can use the card. Of course, the mobile bank, I'll not get into it. Let me also touch upon the public space of investment. For agriculture to grow, irrigation investments are absolutely critical. Now, can you work out a system? What India did, and last 3 years story only I'll speak to you. India realized quickly that there are projects, mega irrigation projects, medium irrigation projects, they are not getting completed because there is no front loading of resources. These are the government initiatives. Now, unless assured access to finances are available, so a long-term irrigation fund was announced by Government of India, housed in National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, where we raise the resources from the market based on our AAA rating, and government provides only a little bit of subvention. So this money, it's a huge money. If I'll need time to convert them into billions and dollars. So I'll suffice to say it's a big money. This will ensure that huge irrigation potential which was stuck will get unlocked. Number one. Number two, a similar fund called Micro Irrigation Fund has been announced, and Mr. Patnaik, the Secretary Agriculture, Government of India, is here. I'm sure he would also like to touch upon it. And something which Mr. Jain's company is doing, water use efficiency. Honorable Prime Minister said we need to work in the direction of more crop per drop. And this fund is an analogy to what Government of India expects, that let us put in a system which replaces flood irrigation mechanism with water efficient investment. That's where, again, you would need a policy framework which articulates and enables the governments of African nations to steer their interventions, which facilitates investments in agriculture. I can go on mentioning, but time is limited. Last point, aggregation is the solution. Unless we aggregate smallholders into producers' organizations or producers' companies, there is no viable option of making agriculture viable for the smallholders. So India currently is aggressively organizing and facilitating promotion of producers' companies, where only the producers can be the shareholders, and linking them to value addition, linking them to the markets. And I can assure you, next 3 years would see at least one producer company in 6 villages. So 100,000 producers companies, if you visualize, 3 years perspective is not too long a period. And Indian farmers should be able to come together under properly regulated mechanism, which enable them not only access to credit, but also to negotiated input procurement and output marketing, if possible through value addition. Climate change in Africa and India, we suffer the same things. NABARD today is the only national implementing entity, accredited entity by Green Climate Fund and also UN Adaptation Fund. The first project which focuses on agriculture has been sanctioned by GCF in Orissa, which basically talks about desilting of ponds, creating water harvesting structures, and putting solar pump sets on top of those wells. I think 2 issues I would like to reiterate here, and that's where I land. One, unless climate agenda is focused on agriculture, our climate action will be incomplete. How do we do that is a challenge. NABARD has done this, and we'll be very happy to share with the African nations. The second point is, while we continue to work on mitigation, adaptation is equally important. How do we facilitate Indian farmers to adapt to what is going to happen in terms of climate change? So in terms of priority, the policy backing, I think we need to work on both African nations as well as India, equal importance to climate change adaptation and climate change mitigation. 2 of us, we have a world-class training facility in Lucknow, where large number of bankers from Africa are visiting under exchange program of Government of India, Ministry of External Affairs. We would love to facilitate more and more awareness building. In fact, Government of India has announced setting up of a similar world-class facility for sharing the experiences of India in Africa in association with African Union. So we would like to create that situation where the stakeholders in Africa are trained to how we can take the policy agenda and the action. Initially, we thought it can be Malawi, but that center is yet to be fixed. If you also wish, India can support through one of our subsidiaries called NABARD Consultancy Services as to how do you go about designing the policy structure. As I said, any effort on reviving agriculture will be incomplete unless we look at investments, and investments led by banking system. So reorienting the central banking policies, reorienting the commercial banking policies, I think these are the areas where NAPCONs can also chip in with some support. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for your elaborate presentation. And now, though, we would like to really know the Africa perspective. In fact, I've been waiting for that. And we are very lucky that we have the director of the African Development Bank, Mr. Chiji Chinedium Ojukwu. Please, sir. You would like to sit down?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. I'm happy to be here to present the perspective of the African Development Bank. You've heard throughout this week everything being said about agriculture and the need to transform African agriculture. Let me start by giving you a little bit of the context. One, most of you may not know it, that Africa is still very poor. Over 30% of Africans still live below poverty line of $1.25 a day. In numbers, this is 420 million. And if we don't do something by transforming agriculture in the next 10 years, this number will rise to 550 million Africans. I believe this should be a concern to all of you. Secondly, the level of malnutrition. 58 million African children below the age of 5 are malnourished. And this has a lot of cost, not only to the parents, but also to the authorities. I think yesterday there was a presentation on gray matter infrastructure. That is about nutrition. Thirdly, this you may have also heard, because we don't produce enough, Africa tends to import a lot, and we're spending $35.4 billion annually annually, importing food. And if we don't transform African agriculture in the next 10 years, this will rise to $110 billion annually. We will not find this money. So that will mean more people being malnourished and more poverty. And again, you've heard that Africa is at the bottom of the global value chain. I think the president talked about cocoa, for example, where the chocolate industry is smiling and the farmers in Ivory Coast who produce cocoa are crying and the prices are falling. And Africa only commands 16% of the value chain in cocoa industry. So these are the concerns that we have. And that's what has led African Development Bank to produce last year what we call the Feed Africa strategy. And that's the second pillar in our high five. Copies are outside. Please feel free to pick a copy. So this is what encapsulates what African Development Bank wants to do. So they want to follow what we call a value chain approach, commodity value chain approach. They want to look at about 18 commodities where Africa spends $35.4 billion and target them, not just to reduce the import, but also to make sure that we produce enough surplus to feed ourselves and even export. You've heard about the land potential that is available, so producing should not be a problem for Africa. But why do we import so much? And why don't we produce enough? Some of the problems we have is low productivity. Today, on average, Africa's productivity among various commodities is about 20%. And this is the main reason that we are where we are. I believe in India or America and all these places, if you put 8 hours of labor, you have enough returns. But in Africa, you put 8 hours, you get 20% of your labor. So this is a concern. We need to do something about it. Okay. So again, the urbanization is also driving consumption. And middle class are shifting from what we call standard food to premium food. So this is increasing demand for food. And with population growing, and you've heard about all the issues associated with population, especially youths, then the need to look at agriculture, the need to transform African agriculture becomes imperative. That's why we produce these documents. And what is it that we want to do? So I'm going to quickly run through some of the things we want to do, and this is where I invite India to join us. One is on productivity. We know that productivity is very low, but there are technologies. India has gone through green revolution, and we're talking about leapfrogging. Somebody said today that there's an African proverb which says that if you are coming to the kitchen very late, you don't need to break so many pots because people have broken the pots. You just come and make sure that things work. So let's leapfrog. Let's take what India has done. So bring your technology. We have some scientists and research institutions, the CG centers, working in Africa. And together we've launched what we call Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation. It's about $850 million project. So this is where we want to take those technologies that have been developed, either from India or elsewhere and Africa, and take them to the farmers. So you can join us there. Secondly, we talk about value addition. We're not adding enough value. Some of the statistics I have here shows that the agribusiness, percentage of agribusiness in Africa is about 38% because we don't add much value. People actually think that agriculture is production. They don't know that there's a lot that happens after production. So we don't have much activities happening after production, the post-harvest activities. So we just market our produce very raw and we don't add much value. So we're looking at how to add value, and we invite you to join us to process, to market. I think the last speaker said a lot about that. I'm not going to repeat that. Then we're looking at the infrastructure. There's a lot of infrastructure deficit. The roads are not there. Irrigation, for example. If we want to improve technology, we cannot continue to do rain-fed agriculture. We need to look at what India and China and Korea, how did they do it? What is the role of irrigation? What is the role of roads? What is the role of other infrastructure, power? They're all part of agriculture. So this is an area that we also want to learn from what you've done, and I believe your businessmen and women will find a lot of scope to work with us in these areas. ICT has become a very important factor in modern agriculture. So how are you doing it? How can you work with us? I've met a number of companies telling us how they've been able to transform agriculture using ICT. Can you bring that to Africa? Can you work with our own young people who are also into ICT to see how you can support Africa? Then the other issue that I want to talk about is financing. We don't have enough investment, and investment is money, okay? One of the statements I made earlier is that Africa needs, I think my president also said that we need $30 billion annually to transform agriculture. And today we only have 7 billion. So there's a gap of 23 billion annually. So, but we are not saying that there is no benefit. Our analysis shows that if we're able to put 30 billion annually, we'll be able to reap 85 billion. So there's a lot of return from your investment. So please bring the resources, work with African investors, and there's a lot of potential for you to make profit in Africa. And I think you've already talked about policy. We also want to know the policies that you have put in place. Africans need to continue to reform their policies so that they make investment in agriculture very conducive for those who want to invest. So policy support is very key. Another area I want to talk about is what we call inclusivity. A lot of young people, the other day I mentioned it, if you come to Africa today, the average age of farmers is 60 years. How much can a 60-year-old person do? And if we don't bring young people, this average age will reach 65, maybe 70, or there'll be no farmers at all. So we need to support young people to come into agriculture. The African Development Bank will set up a program we call Enable Youth. This is to allow young people, send them to incubation centers, bring their peers who are also doing agriculture to work with them so that peer-to-peer learning, they will learn, and we'll support them with some seed money to start, after which we link them to the banks. So I'm told today that, again, when I talk about finance, in Africa today, the bank portfolio going to agriculture is only about 5%. Even though agriculture contributes over 20% of GDP, the banks are only lending 5%. So there is scope. And the reason is because banks perceive that agriculture is risky. I think we've demonstrated that it's not as risky as they think. So banks, foreign banks, please come and try to make some money by investing in agriculture, by supporting young people. Women as well. I think my president also mentioned the program that we're doing called AFAWA, Affirmative Financing Action for African Women. So this is evidence has shown that women are even better managers than men. So we want to invest in them, especially those in agriculture. So we have this program. If you know how you can work with us to support women-based enterprises, so this is an area that we want to work. Finally, partnership. As I said, Africa needs 30 billion annually, of which we have 23 billion gap. The African Development Bank is willing to put 2.4 billion, but that still leaves a lot of space, a lot of for investment. So partners who want to work in Africa, please bring your money. We are not saying you should bring it to the African Development Bank, but take it to the countries. I've seen that you are having some signing ceremonies with Mozambique and the rest of them. Go there and invest these resources. But African Development Bank is there to catalyze. We want to set up platforms. We're setting up a platform we call agribusiness platform, where we want business to talk to government, especially what you are trying to do, and government to talk to business. Business to ask government, what are you going to put in place for us to bring our money? And government to ask business, if we put all these incentives for you, how more jobs will you create? Where will you locate your businesses? Things like that. We want to encourage such dialogue. We also want to encourage a dialogue between governments themselves, because in some countries, ministers of finance don't talk to ministers of agriculture, because Minister of Finance has a lot to talk about, not only agriculture, education, health, and so on and so forth, and therefore decides not to talk to anybody. So we're creating a platform where ministers of finance and ministers of agriculture will meet annually. We call it Leadership for Agriculture Platform. So this is also a way to catalyze discussion, to catalyze policy changes, to catalyze investment. And this is opportunity to work with Indian companies and those who want to invest in Africa. And African Development Bank will be willing to facilitate your entry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A very good perspective. And I'm sure a lot of Indian private sector people would be attracted to invest. And as you rightly said, it's for the return. I would like to invite Principal Secretary if you want to make your comments.
Honorable dignitaries on the dais, honorable participants in this seminar. I would just like to mention that since we are talking about cooperation between Africa and India in this whole sphere of agriculture and increasing the income of the farmers, that it is not one single factor which has led to the development of agriculture, but multitude of factors are there which India and especially Gujarat has practiced over the last few years. In the mid-60s, we were in the same situation as Africa is today, where we were importing a large proportion of our food grains, and the instability in the supply of food grains was leading to political problems here and issues of sovereignty also. However, we could come out of it with the Green Revolution. Large number of steps were taken. I'd just like to run through them. Firstly, the skills and education. Government invested very heavily in training of farmers, extension services, TNV services, etc. Then to raise the productivity, we had better input, seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, etc. And this was delivered not through the private sector alone, but through the cooperatives, through the primary agricultural cooperatives, so that the spread would be faster and we could reach the last person. Then mechanization. A lot was said that mechanization will lead to loss of jobs, but we find that the areas where the mechanization has taken place, there's a large amount of new jobs which have been created due to ancillary industries, non-farm employment, multiple cropping, etc. Then credit. Here the banks, nationalized banks played an important role, NABARD played an important role, and also the cooperative banks. They have also played a very important role. And now the whole thrust towards a digital payment system and Jan Dhan Yojana and digital economy, this has led to financial inclusion on a big scale, because those who were excluded from the financial system have been brought into it. And one major effect it has had in agriculture is that earlier the exploitation of farmers through different mechanisms was taking place, where the seller of the input was also the person to whom the produce was sold, and multi-structured mechanisms were there by which farmers were not getting the price. Now with the digital economy, the payments are made directly into the accounts of the farmers, the subsidies go directly there. So there is very little diversion which takes place. So all the subsidies which are given by the government, the programs of the government, very targeted and exact implementation takes place. Then also we had a lot of emphasis on other systems, that is electricity. Gujarat had the Jyoti Gram Yojana, where 24 hours electricity was provided to the villages. It's led to the optimum utilization of labor time. Water was there. We went in for check dams, micro irrigation, and at the same time big projects like the Narmada Dam and big canal systems were also taken up on a big scale. So the optimum utilization of water was there, right from micro irrigation, check dams to major projects. Then roads and rural infrastructure. This was also very necessary for connectivity of the village markets with the major markets. Then the lowering of cost, farmers' cost through organic agriculture. This is a major thrust area. Then the marketing of the produce through the agriculture produce marketing committees, and now the ENAM project, where these are being linked electronically, so that you have electronic national agricultural market, ENAM. This has been taken up by the government in a big way. Then risk mitigation of the farmers with the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. This is also there, where if the crops fail due to various climatic reasons, the risks are mitigation. Then storage systems. Gujarat government has a scheme where individual farmers building storage systems are also given subsidies. Cooperative societies are also given subsidies, and state government through the Seed Development Corporation has launched a major storage and go-down building program. Then the non-farm incomes have been generated through a lot of rural industrialization. The government of Gujarat and government of India policies are spreading industries in the rural areas by giving additional subsidies and facilities. especially in the backward areas. So this has led to diversification in employment system. Then the stress on dairy. The Amul model is well known in India, so this gives a supplementary income to the farmers. Then fisheries and poultry, these also provide supplementary income. Household crafts, which are very important in Gujarat also, especially for women, they supplement the household income. So a lot of things related to agriculture are being done. It's not only thrust on productivity and input into the field, but a lot of things around the rural economy have to be done, which I think is a good and successful model. And now the government of Gujarat has come out with a new policy for solar farming, that we have developing solar farms where farmers using tube wells, or even on a larger scale, they can have the solar panels, and when they are not using the electricity for tube wells or any other purpose, it is being fed into the grid. And from that, the farmers are earning income. So through photosynthesis, they are growing crops and getting income. Through photovoltaic cells, they are generating electricity and getting income. So they are harnessing the solar energy, Surya Urja, by either biological means or through electronic means. So what I wanted to say is that multifarious efforts are required to develop agriculture and to develop the income of the farmers, and not the least what Mr. Khambata said about value addition in the food chain, either through post-harvest mechanisms at the site or at the village itself. Government of Gujarat has taken a decision this year that those farmers who set up post-harvest processing facilities at the field itself, they will be given electricity at the agricultural rates, and extra electrical connections will be given. And also we are giving subsidy up to 2 lakh rupees for setting up these facilities. And in our agro-industry policy, we give 25% capital subsidy and 7.5% interest subsidy. And for women and vulnerable groups, we give 1% additional subsidy, and for youth also additional. So up to 9.5% interest subsidy is given. Then in our horticulture policy for cold storage processing units, post-harvest, under the National Mission to Develop Horticulture, we give 50% subsidy. Then under the Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana, up to 100% subsidy can be given to very innovative projects brought forward by the cooperative societies, APMCs, farmer producers groups, etc. So the government, through the policy measures, has taken a lot of pains to see that multifarious measures are taken, multidimensional measures are taken to raise the productivity of agriculture and of the farmers and the incomes of the farmers also. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for especially describing the Gujarat model. And now I would like to invite Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare, Mr. Shobhana K. Patnaik, to make his presentation. You want the presentation?
Good afternoon. Honorable Minister of State for Finance, Government of India, Sri Santosh Kumar Gangawat Sahab. Honorable Minister for Agriculture, Government of Gujarat, Sri Chimanbhai D. Saparia ji. The distinguished speakers on the dais, delegates from Africa and India, senior officers, representatives of the diplomatic corps, representatives of UN organizations, international organizations, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure to be here, standing before you on a historic occasion, which is on the sidelines of the African Development Bank board meeting in Ahmedabad. In fact, this opportunity is very rare, and I consider it a privilege to be here today to explain some of the policies of the Government of India and to ensure that the Indo-African agricultural cooperation reaches new heights in the days to come. Many of the distinguished speakers have already pointed out the need for a robust relationship between India and Africa. In fact, Africa can feed the world, and the Feed Africa initiative, which is being just outlined by the director of the African Development Bank, has pointed to a specific intervention like feeding Africa. But we feel it is not feeding Africa, it is feeding the world. And we all know that the two big countries having such huge population, that is China and India, perhaps would need to double the efforts in order to feed their own population. So along with Africa, this is one of the biggest challenge that this century has witnessed. Therefore, many UN organizations, especially the World Food Summit and FAO, have repeatedly pointed out that we must ensure global food security. And when we speak about global food security, we look towards Africa not only because they are unable to feed themselves and the biggest importer of food grains, close to $35 billion, which will go up to $110 billion, but at the same time, a large proportion of persons who are underfed lie both in Africa and to a significant extent in India also. Similarly, the degree of malnutrition is also equally high in these two regions. Therefore, there is a need to collaborate, cooperate, and ensure that we learn from each other. As Mr. Khambata has pointed out, that Africa has all the potential to supply pulses to us, and we have all the expertise to supply wheat and rice to the millions of people in Africa. And I must ensure in this audience that we have an international organization called ICRISAT, which does research for both for India and Africa in the area of millets and pulses, which are known as smart foods or the climate resilient crops, which was alluded to in some of the speakers' introduction. The future of the climate smart food lies in millet and pulses, and therefore there is a need to concentrate also in this area. To my presentation, I'd just like to quickly glance through some of the areas in which there is cooperation between India and some of the key African nations. This one I will skip because this has already been spoken about, this slide. Coming to the MOUs that we have signed close to 13 MOUs with 12 countries in the area of agriculture, cooperation, and farmers' welfare. And that involves Tanzania, Zambia, Mozambique, Sudan, Uganda, Rwanda, Mauritius, Malawi, Botswana, South Africa, Madagascar, Mauritius, and Kenya. The Animal Husbandry, Dairy and Fisheries Department of the Government of India has already signed 3 MOUs with 2 countries, Morocco and Algeria. Similarly, the Agricultural Research and Education Department of the Government of India has got MOUs and agreements with 6 countries, Liberia, Namibia, Eritrea, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Seychelles. Coming to the ongoing activities between the Department of Agricultural Research and some of the African countries, we have the agricultural seed production cum demonstration centers in Togo and Rwanda, this is a spelling mistake, soil, water, and tissue testing laboratories in Burkina Faso, Kenya, and Tanzania, the farm science centers in Liberia and Ethiopia. The director did mention about what could be the possible areas of cooperation. Productivity is the greatest challenge, and therefore we feel that some of the areas which have been identified here can really help in raising the productivity of Africa. Coming to some of the other areas of cooperation, India has signed an MOU for setting up a Pan-African University of Life and Earth Sciences in Nigeria. We have also assured that we'll set up 4 colleges of agriculture, horticulture and forestry, basic science and agriculture, and animal sciences at the University of Ibadan in Nigeria. You may ask, why do you sign all these agreements? Someone told me, if you want to eat fish, don't supply fish. You teach him how to do fishing. And this is basically for this reason, we want to ensure that capacity building is given the biggest priority. We also want to strengthen the programs of reproductive health science, geoscience, plant breeding, and environmental management. And the aid memoir is in the final process, and soon it will see the light of the day. Coming to some of the international training programs that we conduct in India, directly under the aegis of the Ministry of Agriculture, we have a world-class organization called MANAGE, that is National Institute of Agricultural Extension and Management, which is located in Hyderabad. We have already trained many officers from Kenya, Liberia, and Malawi. Similarly, in the area of agricultural marketing, we have conducted training programs in Jaipur for Liberia, Kenya, Ghana, Malawi, Botswana, and Mozambique. 7 countries from Africa, that is Tanzania, Zambia, Mozambique, Sudan, Uganda, Rwanda, and Botswana, also will be imparted training in the coming days in both these training institutes. Apart from this, we have several scholarships program run by the Ministry of External Affairs that I'll just gloss through. There is also great potential for giving training in the area of poultry development and fisheries, as well as how to produce frozen cement techniques for upgrading the indigenous breeds of African animals. Similarly, we also can supply vaccine for the foot and mouth disease for the large cattle population of Africa, particularly in the sub-Saharan Africa, where animal wealth is considered to be the only wealth for agriculture. Similarly, in the area of pulse production, we want to attain self-sufficiency. And I know for sure that this can only happen provided we have cooperation between ourselves and the many countries of Africa. Last year, in fact, there are cooperation for cultivation and import of tur from Ethiopia, Malawi, Tanzania, Sudan, Mozambique, and also we have signed an agreement with Mozambique last year by which we have imported tur or the pigeon pea from especially from Mozambique. The South African High Commission has also approached for enhancing the pulse production, and so that farmers in African countries can grow the pulses and they can export to India. India has a voracious appetite for pulses. In fact, on pulses, I must tell the audience that we are the biggest producer of pulses, the biggest importer of pulses in the world. And therefore, we are the biggest producer, the biggest consumer, and the biggest importer. So there lies business opportunities. So if someone has to make money, then they can produce pulses abroad and sell it to India. The government of South Africa has also requested us to host a multidisciplinary team, and which we are going to do soon. And this I've already said, I don't want to go, I'll just skip. The another potential area is that of the farm machineries. The farm machinery is, from India is very well known abroad, especially in African countries. The beauty of the farm machinery is that they're cost effective, affordable, and also very efficient, and the spare parts are not very costly. So there lies great potential. In fact, some of the East European countries are very keen about taking our farm machineries. I think there lies great potential for African countries to get this. And I would not like to elaborate much. You would have seen the exhibition which is there outside. And now we are eagerly awaiting for the arrival of our Honorable Chief Minister of Gujarat. He's already appeared, so we'll stop here for a moment. Sir, I take this opportunity to welcome the Honorable Chief Minister of Gujarat to this function. Especially, we'll be witnessing the signing of the MOUs between the government of Gujarat and 4 different countries. Sir, with your permission, I may be permitted to continue what I was saying. Sir, I want to say that the farm machineries of India has acquired a name internationally, and African countries can really benefit from them. We have some of the manufacturers having their assembly plant in some of the countries. Sir, and secondly, as I have already pointed out, there is scope for capacity building, sharing and transfer of technology, export and investment opportunity of farm machinery. We have also got the capacity for training, testing of tractors and other agricultural machinery within our country, and Africa can perhaps send some of their farmers, some of the technicians to our country, and we'll be easily helping them out in this regard. We can also assure them that there will be transfer of technology in this particular area. Coming to the best part of this particular occasion is the signing of the MOU. This is just the beginning. 4 MOUs are going to be signed, one between the Republic of Togo and the government of Gujarat, one from Ghana and the government of Gujarat, one from Fidana Limited, a company from it's a Zambian company and the government of Gujarat, and the last but not least between Mozambique and the government of Gujarat. The final occasion has come. This is just the beginning. We'll have many more such MOUs and ensure that Indian-African cooperation reaches new heights. Jai Hind.
Hello. From our side, we warmly welcome the Honorable Chief Minister of Gujarat, sir, and with your permission, we will have an MOU signing. And then later, if you can spend a few words just to give you. The first MOU is between the Republic of Togo and the government of Gujarat.
Sir, this is the MOU between the Republic of Togo and the government of Gujarat. It is for the, sir, different things regarding organizing the, Togo intends to develop the infrastructure projects, sir, mining activities, renewable energy, source for power generation. Sir, I want to inform, sir, with the support of Mr. Parag Tajura, Saurashtra Vipar Yog Mahamandal, who is working for this for 17 years, sir. He was having vision for this, sir, and he supported us like anything for this thing, sir, on a short notice, sir. And his vision was also, sir, fulfilling by this seminar, sir. As, sir, we will invest in It's okay. Now, I am inviting the Limpolo Agricola. Please come forward for the MOU signing. Rest you.
Thank you very much. Now we have 2 more MOUs. This MOU is between the Association of Ghana Industries and Gujarat Agro Corporation. The Association of Ghana Industries is a voluntary business association of around 1,200 members, small, medium, large, in various fields like agro-processing, agribusiness, pharmaceutical, electronics, and they want to develop infrastructure projects, renewable energy, source of power generation, increasing productivity, etc. And the fourth MOU is between the Fidana Limited, it's a Zambian company, and the Gujarat Agro Industries Corporation. Their core interest is improving agriculture through farming, manufacturing, and they want to develop a robust and coherent agriculture industry using technology of in automobiles and education. Thank you very much. Thank you. We will take a group photo. I am very happy to announce that the Minister of Agriculture and Livestock of the Republic of Madagascar is with us today, Mr. Rivo Rokotovo. Sir, thank you for joining us. We are talking of India-Africa partnership and taking towards the second green revolution. And we already had some addresses. And I would be very happy if you would also give us your comments and how we can take it forward. Hello, hello.
Donc, Monsieur le ministre d'État, chers collègues, et désolé pour le retard parce qu'il y avait un chevauchement de programme. Donc, moi, je me présente, je suis le ministre de l'Agriculture et de l'Élevage de Madagascar. Donc, je suis là aussi pour présenter un peu par rapport au thème. Effectivement, le Madagascar, pour vous donner quelques repères et quelques chiffres clés, c'est un pays donc de 59 millions d'hectares. Donc 40 millions d'hectares sont des terres arables et que bien que 10% pour le moment sont exploités, donc moins de 5 millions d'hectares. Donc par rapport au thème, nous avons de grandes potentialités. Madagascar est très fragile par rapport au changement climatique. Nous, on a des cyclones, de la sécheresse tous les ans. Et c'est un des défis majeurs du monde entier. Mais en tout cas, Madagascar, qui est un pays à vocation agricole, est très fragile par rapport à ce changement climatique. Donc, on est dans une démarche stratégique et on ne peut qu'en tenir compte de cette problématique. Mais en tout cas, notre volonté, c'est de voir avec nos paysans qui constituent 80% des Malgaches, nos petits paysans, petits exploitants, qui sont de moins d'1 hectare par exploitation familiale, et l'opportunité que se présente Madagascar avec ses terrains arables pour les infrastructures, notamment les infrastructures agricoles, parce qu'on parle d'agriculture. Et on est venu pour voir, pour discuter, pour dire aux gens, on a cette potentialité. Mais effectivement, l'accès au terrain, nous le savons tous, il faut qu'il y ait une dimension humaine de l'accès au terrain, parce que tout le monde est attaché à son terrain, et les Malgaches aussi de même. Donc, juste pour vous dire ça, qu'on a les opportunités, et les lois encadrant nos fonciers, ça date de la colonisation, nous sommes en train de revoir ça, pour qu'il y ait un meilleur encadrement légal de nos terrains, voir les plans d'occupation locale pour les petits paysans, et de maintenir un statut spécifique pour les grands investissements, pour sécuriser les investissements fonciers. Mais en tout cas, dans tout ça, c'est primordial pour la durabilité de voir par rapport donc à le changement climatique, et qu'en tout cas, nous sommes disposés à en discuter. En introduction, j'allais dire que par rapport à ces 40 millions d'hectares qui sont là en terre arable, nous sommes preneurs des grands investissements. On sait qu'il y a des problèmes là-dessus, comme tout pays, mais ce que je dirais aux investisseurs, c'est de voir avec l'État malgache, avec les ministères concernés. Il y a 2 ministères qui sont concernés par rapport à ça, c'est le ministère de l'Agriculture et de l'Élevage et le ministère de l'Aménagement du Territoire à Madagascar. Donc c'est juste pour se présenter par rapport au thème, et que un vécu dans le temps. Avant 1972, Madagascar était un pays exportateur net de riz. Parce que nous, les Malgaches, on est sinon le premier, on est le deuxième consommateur de riz. Alors qu'on est devenu un importateur net. Et je sais qu'on importe aussi de l'Inde. Donc c'est un défi pour nous, avec toutes les difficultés qu'on a, mais en tout cas, ce sont des opportunités, et que je crois que dans la discussion, on pourra aller un peu plus dans les détails. Merci.
Thank you very much. And now the address we are waiting for, Minister of State for Finance, Government of India, Mr. Santosh Kumar Gangavar will address it. Sir.
Thank you. Just we are listening, Mr. Revu, the Minister here. The honorable dignitaries who is on dais, and ladies and gentlemen. Actually, it's a very momentable occasion for us that we are signing like such 3 MOUs, and it will percolate a very good signal in African countries and India. Actually, this is a very proper time. I very warmly welcome to all of you in the discussion which we held, this Africa-India Cooperation on Agriculture Partnership for Green Revolution 2. I am honored to welcome you all on the occasion of discussion on agriculture at the event of Africa-India Cooperation 2017, being held along with the 52nd annual meeting of the African Development Bank. The theme of transforming agriculture for wealth creation in Africa is perfect, since agriculture is a critical component of most African economics and the Indian economy too. India and Africa can emerge as key partners in the changing global agriculture and food security scenario. Some possible areas of cooperation are the use of machines in farming for soil health and water management, post-harvest and export infrastructure, food processing technology, pulse production and contract farming. Africa has already successfully implemented several innovations in the agricultural sector, such as AgriManager and Kilimo Salama, using mobile and digital technology. Such steps will help in improving the quality of life of citizens of African countries. India is keen towards developing capacity building institutions and developing infrastructure, public transport, clean energy, irrigation, agriculture and manufacturing capacity across Africa. With this objective, we have committed $7.4 billion in concessional credit and $1.2 billion in grants so far. Africa has a big potential for growth in the agriculture sector. It accounts for 60% of the global farm land reserves and 10% of the global food output. Agriculture in Africa can bring prosperity to the entire continent and also support global food security. India can present an interesting case study in this context, since it supports 17% of the global population with just 2% of the global land mass. A strong Africa-India partnership in agriculture technology may help long-term food security for all developing countries. This is emerging as an important area which needs special focus on agriculture. As told by Mr. Khambataji, the Indian government has taken many steps in the agricultural sector to support farmers and the rural population. These includes the setting up of a goal to double farmers' income by 2022, the new crop insurance scheme, agriculture irrigation scheme, integration via an electronic national agriculture market, (ENAM), 100% rural electrification by 2018, and rural road scheme. Such step will improve the well-being of the farmers' community and also give them the right framework to sustain their livelihood with better mental health. Local farmers always depend upon imported hybrid rice varieties, and particularly from Asia, which sometimes do not give good yield in the adverse condition of the sub-Saharan Africa. As the climate shifts and fertile land shrinks under population pressure, there would definitely be a greater need for innovative ways to produce food. We have learned that the first hybrid rice variety developed in sub-Saharan Africa are yielding up to 4 times more than other improved varieties. All this has been achieved with the help of the technology such as web-based tools, which identify the right climate conditions, the maximize yield, the 15 diseases and temperature tolerance hybrid strains bred the Kenya and Tanzania. are found in Kenya's western lake region and coastal area. More technological and innovative solutions are required in this area to address concerns about Africa's food deficit. India too has launched several steps to address the problems of the food deficit. National Bank for Rural and Rural Development NABARD collaboration with the German government for a special program on soil protection and rehabilitation for food security can work as a templates which can be used to take stock of necessary criteria that need to be incorporated in the framework. As part of the collaboration, NABARD is also engaged in two major programs. One, soil conservation and rehabilitation of degraded land for food security in two states, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. Innovation of watershed development for rehabilitation of degraded soil and climate changes adaptation in the 5 states, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. India being the only country in Asia chosen for the initiative One Bird, No Hunger will address areas such as food and nutrition, security, promotion of new steps, protection and sustainable use of natural resources in rural areas, and promotion of responsible land use and access to land. India's focus on Africa therefore could easily gel with the new step that would form part of the overall list of steps which would help accelerate Africa's progress in the agriculture sector towards becoming the food bowl of the world. With these words, I would like to conclude by saying that India looks forward to collaborate with Africa across various subsections of agriculture, and I am sure that together we may set number of examples for the entire global community to acknowledge that India is the new age food bowl of the world. With these words, I thank you to all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your inspiring speech, sir. Sir, with your permission, we can have some questions from the audience, especially your friends from Africa. If you will like to have some questions, please introduce yourself and ask us. I'll be very happy. We have time for only a few questions. Let us have first some comments from our African friends. Anybody from Africa has? Okay, Yoga, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Vijay. I'm of Indian origin, but 4th generation in Africa. So I consider myself an African.
Oh, very much.
And we have a substantial project in Ghana. And I'm very proud that India is taking the initiative to prepare Africa to be the football for the world. My question was that there are a lot of discussions about agro-processing, but there isn't enough initiative, as I see it at the moment, for primary production, which means the greenfield projects, you know, there's 60% of the world's land and all that, but there isn't any initiative to do the first mile of the development feasibilities that is necessary to start the primary production, which then will lead you to the secondary production. So I'm just wondering, is there any initiative which kind of enables those lands to be, there to be feasibility studies to make sure that those lands are productive?
Is there a question addressed to anybody particular?
Well, I'm just kind of keeping it open to people like Jain Irrigation who require a lot of investment for irrigation systems and all that. So.
Well, if I've understood your question right, yeah, you're very right in the sense that, okay, that is a missing link completely, right? And while we talk about this cooperation and funding and, you know, with due respect, Patnaik Sahab, all the MOUs, but that particular aspect is missing, and I think he's very right in terms of covering that. And I think India as a country could actually provide a lot of support and technological intervention on that to make sure that, you know, I think just to take that forward a little bit, Ethiopia opened up quite a bit in terms of the land for the corporate world. But I think there was a major setback on that, because majority of the people who went in there in the hope of creating corporate farming actually miserably failed, because this particular aspect was missing, because whether the lands are productive enough, whether they are available, whether the land development expense itself is going to be, whether making agriculture productive or economical for that matter. So I think that some initiative can be taken by the Indian government for sure.
Actually, this question should be addressed to the country where you intend improving the primary production. So it's basically the policy of the individual country so far as investing in seed, investing in productivity improvements. But so far as the government of India is concerned, we already have MOUs, and wherever there has been interest expressed, we are actively cooperating. For example, just to give an example, in Mauritius, they're very keen about organic farming. And we are taking up organic farming in a very big way. So therefore, this is a window of opportunity for all of us to get to speak to all African partners. So I'm certain that in the following phase, this should be getting a big fillip. And here I would appeal to the director of the African Development Bank to please suggest to the various members that India is firmly behind them in trying to, in any respect that we can help them, we are going to be there. Because what we understand in Africa, the biggest bottleneck has been to get quality seeds. And how do we multiply them? And which are those varieties which will do very well? So that needs for a government-to-government cooperation initially. Later on, perhaps step it up through the private companies. So I leave it there.
In fact, today morning we had discussions with the Minister Agriculture of Mauritius, and especially on this question of land testing, to give the soil health card of the particular plots of land, what chemical composition is there, what are the deficiencies, which are the optimal crops, and not only that, but also the water card, the water health card. What is the composition of the water, chemical composition, is it good for agriculture or bad? And they are very keen for cooperation in this. Government of Gujarat and now the government of India has introduced a policy of giving a soil health card, which is like our own blood test report for every plot of land, and every 3 years we are renewing it also, so that if there are changes due to application of fertilizer, etc., it's a more dynamic model. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question?
Sir, we would like to...
Yes, sorry.
Merci pour la question. Effectivement, hein, c'est une question lorsqu'on appelle la databilité de l'agriculture. Donc, il en est question donc, de ces cartes de fertilité, je dirais. Et nous, on remercie ici publiquement le gouvernement indien qui a beaucoup aidé Madagascar sur un projet qu'on appelle chez nous SIGARD. Il y aura une composante de cette recherche de cartes de fertilité du sol. Donc, pour savoir qu'est-ce qu'il est bon de cultiver plutôt du riz que du maïs. Donc, je dirais que c'est la base même de la recherche de l'amélioration de la productivité de notre exploitation, c'est l'analyse du sol. Mais effectivement, vous avez raison de dire que même dans un pays à vocation agricole comme Madagascar, on n'avait pas trop pensé à cette analyse. On s'était toujours dit, non, parce qu'il y en a du terrain, il y a de disponible, on n'a pas trop regardé l'augmentation de la productivité. Donc je pense que dans la démarche d'aide ou en tout cas de coopération avec l'Inde, il y a ce volet analyse du sol qui est très primordial, et nous tenons à remercier parce que d'ici 2 mois, on va inaugurer donc le centre à Tanarive pour l'analyse du sol et l'occupation du sol. Merci.
Can you help us just
Hello.
Thank you very much. I just want to also respond to the question on the aspect of primary production. In addition to inviting you to come to Africa and invest, there are also a number of smallholder farmers who can produce for you. Okay. What they need is the technology. You bring the technology, you bring the improved seeds, you bring the chemicals and fertilizers, and you organize them as art growers, and they will produce whatever you need. I think this is one of the approaches that is being adopted in Africa. Thank you.
Call this contract farming in English.
Contract farming.
Yeah, that's what we call it.
Okay.
Can you please help with this translation, what you spoke? What did the Honorable
Quickly, Honorable Minister Madagascar, what he spoke about was that, okay, what is being said is true. It should be done, and I think there are some initiatives taken, at least in Madagascar, to actually soil health to be done and checked before it is being offered. I think that's what Honorable Minister shared.
Yes. Any other questions, please?
Yes.
Please identify yourself.
My name is Sanginga. I'm the Director General of the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, based in Nigeria. So this is my question, is to know how much is a farmer here in India is subsidized, and how much do you give him?
Good question. It's a very good question.
This is I must tell here that this is a very difficult question. That's because the farmer is not given subsidy upfront. The subsidies are well distributed through different schemes. For example, take the case of power. Whatever power is given to the agricultural sector, in many of the states that we have, it comes almost free. And some of the states is very nominal. Take water. The cost of water for irrigation comes to a very minimal amount. In fact, farmers don't pay for water in many states that they use, which is irrigation water. Coming to, let's say, so far as seed is concerned, yes, to some extent it is subsidized, maybe 50% of it is subsidized. So we have different schemes, and the subsidy levels is different in different places. Take the case of micro irrigation, drip and sprinkler irrigation. We have substantial land under drip irrigation now, thanks to the intervention of modern technology. But in some states it is subsidized to the extent of 50%, but in some places, which is extreme dry regions, they are subsidized to the extent of 90%. So I just cannot quantify. Then many policies which are not under the direct administration of agriculture also, to a great extent, is in favor of farmers. Just now you heard Mr. Dave telling you about credit. In fact, the government itself mandates every year in the budget, a certain quantum of budget will flow for agriculture. And that's a very important intervention. Many of the African countries have mentioned that they must invest 10% of their GDP in agriculture. In fact, in India, if you add up all the efforts, it's a substantial, it's quite huge. Though if you see it individually, it appears it's nothing much, but actually it is substantial. So the agriculture is given a great degree of importance by the government.
Thank you very much, sir. Good answer. One last question, because I think they are running short for the. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. This is Samir Bhattacharya. I am from Cuts International. We are based in Jaipur, but we are working in more than 30 countries in Africa. So my question is to Honorable Delegate from Director of AFDB. Sir, you mentioned that India should import the ICT technologies for agriculture. I wanted to know what type of cooperation you had in your mind when you said ICT technologies to be used in agriculture, when some of the African countries, they already have developed good amount of ICT technologies. They're doing very good in digital inclusion, like Kenya, like MCOPA in Kenya and Tanzania, or Phoenix International. Why those companies are not doing good enough, and what India can do to help? What is the model of South-South cooperation you are envisaging in ICT in agriculture?
Thank you. That's a good question. There is no knowledge that is either too much or too little. A number of technologies exist in Africa, but Africa can still do with more. So as I talked about leapfrogging, if there are new technologies or research or whatever that you are doing here that are helping your agricultural systems, Africa will be happy to learn. And please don't be shy to come and share with us. Don't say that you already have too much and you don't want to bring any more. So we are open and welcome new additions that will help transform our agricultural system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite Mr. Andrava for his vote of thanks. Sir.
Good afternoon, sirs. I am very thankful to all the participants. First of all, because of you, it is a big success. Distinguished guests on the dais, Honorable CM, with the short notice, he gave us the time. We are very thankful to the CM Saab. We are very thankful to the Chimanbhai Shapriya, Minister of Agriculture and Cooperation. In spite of all persons are having very busy schedule today, they have spared the valuable time for this. We are thankful to Santosh Kumar Saab, Minister of State for Finance. We are especially thanking to Minister of Agriculture and Livestock, Republic of Madagascar, Rivo Rakotova. We are thankful to Secretary Government of India, who has spared the whole day for this program. From the morning, he was here with us. We are very thankful for his presentation and for very good message to us. We are also thankful to our PS who has supported us for make this success. And Shri Sanjay Prasad Saab. We are thankful to Piruz Khambata, who has always helped us in all the programs regarding food processing. He is the leader, visionary leader in food processing sector, Rasna. And we are also thankful to Shri Daveji, Shri Ojukuvo, Shri Atul Jain, who has all given the presentations. And especially we are thankful to Secretary Animal Husbandry, Murli Saab, and our senior officers, Director Agriculture, Horticulture, and all other officers who has supported us to make this success. We are again, finally I am very thankful to all the persons who are on the desk, as well as all the participants, press, media, and the CII who has made this success. And sir, I am closing here. Thank you very much. I am very thankful to you, sir. Thank you.